group focus on today is the importance of education, the importance of keeping our kids on track and keeping them in school until they graduate. Secondly, we talked about the need for reform in the criminal justice system, both outside before a person enters prison and once they're in prison. Thirdly, we talked about the need for homes like the Toni house, where women and men on the other side can come and receive support after becoming addicted. Any of us, there's not a one out here who does not have a family member probably who's addicted at some level. So we all know about it. It's a need to do something about addiction, and again, Monique Westfield is doing it. Education is important. You drill education into kids at a very young age. And we have a responsibility to do that. High expectations. This is the education book. Briefly, why did I write this book? And I just finished it last 8-9 months ago. My grandkids begin to ask questions. I suggest to all of you, Senator Ford, you've had a very illustrious career. Start writing about your background. Start writing about your parents. Because your kids and your grandkids are going to ask you one day. My granddaughter, Kara, who's 26 years of age, working on a graduate degree, she said, "Grandpa, you mean you had a PhD in psychology, you had never been in trouble, and you couldn't buy a home in East Lansing, Michigan because you were black?" I said, "Yeah." She's 20, Kara's a very sophisticated young lady, 26. She said, "Well, tell me about that." And I told the story of how Mitt Romney's father, George Romney, was governor of Michigan at that time. I left the campus one day, went down to the Capitol building in Lansing, Michigan, and I said, "I want to see Governor Romney." Guess what? In those days, it could happen. I got to see him. And so we had a man who stood out, and this is not political at all here. And I'm not a Mormon. I'm raised in the Church of God in Christ, saved, sanctified, and baptized with the Holy Ghost and fire. And I've forgotten most of it. But on the serious side, Romney came out and supported us to be able to just to buy a home a block from the campus where I got my PhD. So things have changed.
I am the greatest. I said that even before I knew I was. I figured that if I said it enough, I would convince the world that I was really the greatest. Who said that? Okay, now let me tell you why I bring you up that quote. Certainly, we are so sorry about his passing, but his legacy lives on. You knew, many of you knew right away when I said that. Why? Because what he stated was something that did become a reality. When we talk about education, and when we say that students aren't successful, that Clark County School District isn't good, that the teachers aren't any good, that the parents in this neighborhood do not support their children, etc., etc., what we literally do is speak life or death over children and families. This particular quote really stated that what the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. We have to speak into existence our realities, and that's what Muhammad Ali did when he started talking about, "I am the greatest." We have to say to our children, we have to say to our families, we have to say to our politicians, we have to say to our parents and communities that we are the greatest, and that we then work together to make those realities come to pass by developing through the group here the resources, the commitment, the talent, the treasure that needs to happen to make students who live in certain areas the greatest.
There's a young lady who wrote a book called Michelle Alexander. I'm sure everyone knows who she is, and the name of her book was the New Jim Crow. In that book, she talks about this idea of our drug laws and our laws in general, but drug laws in particular, having created a prison industrial complex, is what she calls it, that allows our society to create a segment of society that is lawfully and legitimately discriminated against. lawfully and legitimately discriminated against. You come out of jail, you can be lawfully discriminated against when you go apply for a job. Why? Because you got to check a box that says that I've been convicted of something more than a traffic violation. You can lawfully be discriminated against in education. Why? Because you can't get a Pell Grant. Because you can't get student financial aid if you're a felon in most circumstances. You can be lawfully discriminated against in housing sometimes. Why? Because you can't get public assistance. And so you remove or you place you remove these abilities and you replace restrictions up against individuals who are coming out of jail who want to reintegrate but have no alternative. Oftentimes you can't go to school, you can't get a job, you can't find somewhere to live, and then we expect you to nonetheless be able to reintegrate and not recidivate, as they say. And so at the end of the day, what we're looking at in the state legislature and what I have personally, but you know what, let me actually add a couple more things to that. There are two other things that I think are immensely important in terms of the rights that citizens have in our country. The right to vote and the right to serve on the jury. And neither of those rights oftentimes exist for ex-offenders. Those rights have been removed as well. And again, Mr. Rogan will talk about restoration of rights. And in Nevada, you have the ability to get your voting rights restored. And you may also have the right to get jury service back in. I'm not certain about that. But what I do know is this. What we're looking to do is to make all of these rights, the restoration of those rights, easier. Even if they already, you have the ability to do it now, I want to make it almost immediate. You walk out that door, I want the prison guard to say to you now, we're going to register you to vote right now. And we're going to give you an ID. It used to be you wouldn't even get an ID when you got out of jail. We just passed the law two sessions ago that we require the jail to give you an actual official ID that can be used under those circumstances. But we want to make it easier for people. I want to restore the right to vote easier. I want to give people the ability to serve on juries. I want to find out ways in which we can make it easier for people to get employment. There's this movement out there called Ban the Box, which is this movement to ban the immediate questioning of whether you have a felony until later in the job interview session. So Dr. Morris, you're interviewing somebody, and on the application you have you ever been convicted of a felony other than a traffic violation? They put yes. Oftentimes people will see that and put their resume to the side, put their application to the side, disqualify them immediately. Even though they may be applying for a position where the type of felony that they have, i.e. smoking weed when they were 13 or something, I'm just making that number up, smoking weed when you were of legal age, has nothing to do with the type of job that you're applying for. And so the Ban the Box movement is asking that we not allow that question to be asked on the front side of the interview, but instead later into the interview after you've gotten to know someone and been able to ascertain whether they have the skills necessary to do the job that they're applying for, and therefore not just eliminate them immediately.
Everybody here is affected by the Las Vegas justice court system, whether you're affected by it because you have a family member who's gone through it, whether you yourself have gone through it, you've been a victim, you've been a witness of a crime, but everybody here is affected by Las Vegas justice court. It's real people, and it really matters. I just heard somebody say the other day, the judicial races are the most important races we have because that is our government at work. We don't get to see the executive branch at work every day. We don't get to see the legislative branch. They're up in Carson City doing work. Judges are at work every single day downtown at the Regional Justice Center, and you get to see our criminal justice system and our justice system at work every day. The reason that I'm running for judge and the reason why Monique has invited me here, other than the fact that her and my aunt have been best friends for years, but we share a lot of the same ideas. And the reason I'm running is because there's so many individuals, and we've heard about it obviously sitting here this afternoon, but there's so many individuals who go through our system and they're warehoused and they're sent away to prison and they come out obviously and they have no resources and no ability to do anything. No skills, nothing. And they're individuals who end up in our system because they're mentally ill, because they're severely addicted. Some of them are veterans and they're there and they're committing crimes because of some sort of defect as the result of their service to our country and to all of us. And they end up in our system because of those issues. In Las Vegas Justice Court, we can actually help those people. We have programs to help people who are addicted. We have programs to help the mentally ill, and we have a Veterans Court treatment program.
Listen, I think when I look at what is happening in this country, we need to change the conversation. And with respect to the 3 strikes you're out and the Bill Clinton legislation, we went through a period where we were tough on crime. And it was all about being tough on crime, lock them up, throw away the key. The conversation now needs to change on how do we get these people back on track.
That's right.
And it starts in prison. It doesn't start once they get out. And so I think that from a federal point of view, as Congresswoman, continuing to fight to make sure that that funding actually gets to the people on the ground who are doing the hard work. And banning them, and federal legislation to ban the box and to erase minimum sentences for nonviolent drug-related crimes.
Voting rights. Senator Ford hit it on the head when he said that the process of dealing with your post-conviction rights is very convoluted. Thankfully, most of people who are convicted in the state of Nevada of a felony are immediately restored their voting rights upon their release from prison or upon a discharge from probation, as long as you did everything that you were supposed to do on probation or parole. It's when it becomes a bit more difficult, when you've committed a very serious crime like murder or attempted murder, or where you've hurt where a person has hurt somebody significantly, that it can become difficult to seal your record. Our record sealing, to reobtain your voting rights. If you've done those types of crimes and you haven't successfully completed probation or parole, you may have a long wait ahead of you before you can vote again. If you are interested in reobtaining your rights to vote, you have to look at the statutes and see where you were convicted, when you were convicted, and what were you convicted of. Because every single state has different rules about it. And even the federal system has different rules about it. And the federal system's very easy. You can't vote again unless you get a pardon from the president. That's it. Nevada's a bit different. In Nevada, it just depends entirely upon whether you've finished your sentence and what type of crime you've committed. It's correct when Senator Ford says that we have to revisit that statute. We have to take a look at it again so that people know and they're appreciated that when they've served their sentence, they can participate in the community again by voting. They can participate in the community again by serving on a jury. But right now, the statute's written in a way that penalizes people for having done their sentence. And he certainly is right that it needs to be changed.
The power of the ballot is key. You vote, gives you an opportunity to make a decision about who can do what's best for you and your community.
Have you voted?
I'm voting for you.
Okay, good. Okay, those of you that haven't, call people and tell people we've got to stand together and we've got to vote. Thank you.
The most important thing you can do right now is vote. And go tell your friends and get people out to vote on Tuesday. It's so crucial. We all need to have our voices heard. So thank you so much again, Harmony, Letitia.